So this is potentially a once-in-a-generation opportunity to build wealth through property, because now could be one of the easiest times to dramatically build your net worth, if you know what you're doing. Warren Buffett famously said, "Be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful." Well, it's fair to say that right now you can't even look at the news with seeing another article about interest rates, affordability, or how far the property market is going to drop. Fear is now baked into the mainstream, and it wouldn't surprise me to see the fear and greed index continue to go down for the next 12 months until the market finally capitulates. But look, the housing market is cyclical. And if you have the skills to invest in the current conditions, then right now you have the opportunity to set yourself up for the rest of your life with some incredible opportunities and discounts that are coming. So in this video, I want to talk about what's going to happen over the next 12 to 24 months and what you can do as a property investor to take advantage of this opportunity. And at the end of this video, I'm going to run you through what I consider to be the best strategy that you can use in the current environment to purchase property significantly below market value without even having to negotiate with the seller. I recently used this same strategy to add over £150,000 worth of equity in one day by just moving some paper around. And if you want to learn the skills to do the same, then do yourself a favor, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to make sure you stay up to date with what's working in the property market right now. But before we dive into these powerful strategies, we need to understand what's happened so far to bring us to this point. Now, buy-to-let was essentially created in the UK in 1996. Before that, there's only a small number of private landlords and no such thing as a buy-to-let mortgage. People either had to use cash or commercial lending facilities to buy property in their personal name. But in 1996, a group of lenders got together, had a bit of a knees up and created a bespoke buy-to-let mortgage product, which was designed to allow existing landlords to grow their portfolios. Now, of course, this made the industry far more accessible to the masses, and property became seen as both a store of wealth and also an alternative to a pension. Now, although buy-to-let started in 96, the industry really started to take off in the boom of the noughties. And the amount of annual lending rose from about 4 million a year to 45 billion a year between 2000 and 2007. Of course, property values were shooting up, and investors could not only get properties effectively for free by using same-day remortgage, they could also pull out big chunks of cash to fund their lifestyles. Rental income was a mere cherry on the top at this stage, if even required at all. But in the credit crunch of 2008, the market took a battering, several lenders went under, and of course lending dropped. To prop up the market, interest rates were slashed, and we entered the era of ridiculously cheap debt. All of a sudden, buy-to-lets became both affordable and created an income stream for investors. But this surge in popularity created an issue for the government, as the amount of private rentals doubled in the UK between 2000 and 2014. Now, 14% of these properties are owned by 400,000 what's called amateur landlords, or those with only one property. And as house price rises have continued to outpace earnings, an entire generation has become priced out of the property market. This demographic became known as Generation Rent and holds increasing influence as a voting group. So in an effort to readdress the balance, the government launched an all-out attack on the private rental sector in 2015.
We will create a more level playing field between those buying a home to let and those who are buying a home to live in.
Now, this included Section 24, which means investors can no longer offset their interest costs against their profits, the 3% stamp duty surcharge, minimum energy efficiency standards, and also the rent reform bill. Let's be honest here, the government wants to force the amateur landlord out of the market, and they're doing a great job of doing that. Also, since 2015, house prices have risen far more quickly than rents, which means that yields have been consistently dropping. We can see here the house price to rent ratio steadily climbing since 2015. So in the face of dropping returns and a battering from the government, investing in property has become a far less attractive option to generate income. And then, 18 months ago, everything changed and put the final nail in the coffin of buy-to-let. Interest rates started to rise quickly, and the housing market is now correcting downwards. The already waning yields from a standard buy-to-let have now been totally decimated, and combined with Section 24 have ended the property dream for many. The market agrees and landlords are leaving in their droves. But let's not forget Uncle Warren. Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. Observe the masses and do the opposite, and buy when there's blood in the streets. Pick your favourite and stick it on your vision board, because the balance is tipping. Because as the government has been attacking landlords to solve the housing crisis, they've created another issue, which I have to be honest seemed fairly obvious to anybody who had a basic grasp of economics when all of these policies came in the first place. Through a combination of affordability, meaning many people can't get onto the housing ladder, and a reduction in stock in the private rental sector, The supply and demand curve has totally tipped in the wrong way and rental values are skyrocketing. Right now, year on year, we're seeing double-digit rental increases. And when combined with dropping property prices, yields are starting to become more attractive again, especially when you consider what I believe to be the real opportunity right now, which is taking commercial property, which has absolutely crashed in value over the last 12 months, and converting it to residential using a very generous permitted development rules. Now, I know talk of commercial property usually conjures up images of office blocks, skyscrapers, and high street rental units. But the reality is there's a veritable smorgasbord of commercial property that any investor should be licking their lips over right now at the opportunity to buy at rock bottom prices. From shops with uppers, B&Bs, care homes, even traditional office blocks. The commercial real estate sector presents us the opportunity to be creative about how we can take control of property. Now, this is a crucial difference when compared to the residential sector, because when we're dealing with a sophisticated seller like an institution or a private landlord, there's a lot more options we have in our toolbox. Whereas when we're negotiating with a motivated residential seller, the only tools we really have is an embarrassingly low offer or potentially something like a lease option. Now, I personally don't like purchasing from homeowners unless I can get them more than the house is worth. And actually, I've not bought from a homeowner since 2013. Regardless of how much I try and convince myself that I'm helping them sell their house, I can never quite get past that feeling that I'm taking advantage of somebody's personal situation. But when you're dealing with commercial sales, including landlords who are selling portfolios, it's just objective business. And one of my favorite strategies right now is called balance sheet hacking, which when combined with another strategy I teach called lease re-engineering, gives us what I consider to be the most powerful strategy in the current market to add value and generate return on capital. I want to demonstrate this concept to you using a deal I bought 2 years ago. Now, firstly, to make the strategy work, we need two main ingredients. One, the property needs to be in a limited company. Two, the property needs to have seen a significant uplift in equity already. Because when a company owns a property and that property goes up in value, it creates something called an unrealized gain. And if that company was to sell the property, it would pay tax on that gain. But here's the key. Due to accountancy standards, that company needs to put a provision for that tax in its balance sheet. Let's keep the numbers simple and say a property went up in value by 100 grand and corporation tax was 20%. In this case, the provision for corporation tax would be 20,000 and this would sit on the balance sheet as a liability. Of course, it doesn't have to be paid until the property is sold. So if you wanted to buy this company, which owns the property, you'd also have to buy that liability. Now, I'm pretty sure you're not going to be thrilled to buy a liability and pay somebody else's tax for them. And so the solution is to remove this from the purchase price of the company. And this reduces the upfront amount of money you need to buy that company. Of course, if you bought the company and then sold the property, you would then have to pay the tax on the whole gain. But if we're going to hold for life, we're never actually going to realize this gain. And it doesn't really matter anyway, because the whole point of this is to add immediate value to be able to buy the company for much less cash left in without having to screw over the seller. And this then opens up the ability to buy companies with properties in to anybody, not just those with deep pockets. I hope that made sense. So let's look at the numbers on a deal that I did, where I was able to secure a Chester city centre block of 5 flats and a commercial unit for £340,000. Now, this property was the only one sitting in the limited company, and the owners had bought it in the 70s for, wait for it, 25 grand. So in this case, the provision for corporation tax in the balance sheet was about £60,000. And when you take this off the purchase price, it meant I was able to buy the company for 280 grand. Now, of course, there are complexities when you're buying a limited company, which I'm not going to go into here. But my advice is that you need a good corporate solicitor to be able to do these transactions for you. But another bonus of buying a company rather than property is you're only going to pay 0.5% stamp duty on that transaction, whatever the property stamp duty would have been. On larger transactions, this could save you tens of thousands of pounds. Now, the second part of this transaction was to re-engineer the leases. Now, the property was originally valued at 340 grand based on the 2 existing leases in the building. But on the day I purchased the company, I re-engineered and put these leases up. And if you've seen any of my previous videos on how commercial property is valued, you'll know that that will put the value of the property up straight away. So how this worked in practice was I actually bought the company for cash. And if you don't have that sort of cash lying around, don't worry too much, because you can use other people's money or even use bridging facilities designed for buying companies. Now, before I completed the purchase of the company, I applied to refinance the property within it based on the value of the new leases. Now, the lender we used put their own valuer in, who valued the property at 435 grand and were willing to lend 250 grand on day one. So We bought the business for 280 grand with an unencumbered property sitting within it. We've then had that property revalued at 435 grand, meaning we've added over 150,000 pounds on day one without actually doing anything, just shuffling paper around. Then the day after we bought the property, we've refinanced it and the lenders released 250,000. Meaning there's only about 30 grand plus the cost of the fees left in it. And the leases on this building right now currently generate about £3,500 a month. And that, my friends, is the power of balance sheet hacking and lease re-engineering. Now, I've not stepped foot in this property since I bought it because the tenants were already in there. And I've not even spent a penny on maintenance over the last 2 years because it's under a lease and the tenants pay it all for me. Now, this is just one tool out of many that we can use to rapidly add value and increase return on our capital. And as both the commercial and the residential markets continue to correct right now, there's going to be more and more opportunity for those who have the skill set to take advantage of it. Are you ready for the great wealth transfer?